I'm Dr. Roger Casel. I am the Executive Director of the Jones Institute for Educational Excellence, which is a little bit off campus. But I'm also on the planning committee for Kansas Master Teacher, and it is my honor to be able to facilitate today's seminar. There are a note takers out here. If you want one, they're not required, we're not in class, but if you want to keep track, the questions that the headers are based on the questions that I'm going to be asking. So I thought it might be convenient for you just to jot down some notes if you want. So if you don't have one, you do want one, they're kind of here in the front row, piles of them. The structure is very informal. It's a series of 4 rounds. Round 1, each of the master teacher will introduce themselves very quickly. Round 2, I have 4 questions, and we'll see how well they can follow directions. They have 10 to 15 words only to respond to the question. Once they've all responded, then 3 or 4 will go into depth. And then round 3, we have 1 question they'll all respond to in detail based on the theme of this year. And then round 4 is just a speed round. Round 4 is on the back side of the note taker that you have. The other questions are on their front side. So let's just get started. So basically, each master teacher is going to introduce themselves by giving their name, the school district they're from, the grade level and subject matter they teach, and how many years they've been teaching.
Okay. My name is Connstance Allmond. I go by Connie. I teach for USD 490, which is Dorado Middle School. I teach 6th, 7th, and 8th special needs kids. It's an ID classroom. I have the kids all day. I teach every subject. We teach living skills also, and this is my 19th year of teaching.
Okay, I'm Deanna Burton from Manhattan, Ogden, GSD 383. I teach 7th grade social studies, and I have taught for 42 years.
My name is Abby Cornelius. I am a library media specialist from Blue Valley North High School in the Blue Valley School District. I am in my 17th year teaching.
I'm Todd Flory. I teach 4th grade at Wheatland Elementary in Andover, Kansas, and this is my 7th year teaching.
I am Chitra Harris. I teach at Wichita High School. It's South High School in Wichita, USD 259. And I teach forensic science. And this is my 34th year. I've done 20 years in India and 14 years here.
My name is Matt Irby. I teach here in Emporia at the high school. I teach sophomore biology, zoology, and a biomedical innovation class for kids who want to go into the health field. I've seen one former student. Some of you might be wondering how I ever got up here. Anybody else? A couple? Yeah, you're like, how the heck did he get up there? This is my 14th year teaching.
My name's Kim Schneweis. I teach in Hayes. I teach at the middle school. I teach 6th, 7th, and 8th grade art. Before I was at the middle school, I taught elementary art for 17 years. This is my 29th year of teaching.
Okay. Why don't we give them a nice welcome to... Okay, because we are taping, I'm going to pass the mic along just to make sure that the videotape picks up our voices. So.
Tell us how you really feel, Connie.
Pardon?
I told Connie to tell us how she really feels after a giant sigh.
Okay, the first question. What philosophical belief has been the easiest to maintain throughout your career? 10 to 15 words.
With special needs kids, it's deal with the situation, then move on. Every day or hour is a new one.
I feel that all students can learn, definitely not at the same rate or anything like that, but they all can learn somehow.
It's complicated, but kids come first.
You have to build relationships first with the students in order to teach them.
Have respect and consideration for teachers and their peers.
No matter how much the backgrounds of our kids change, their basic needs are the same. They want to feel loved and respected, and That's our job.
Children learn best through experiences.
Thank you. You did a good job on that. Well, those are short. I'm impressed. I'm impressed. So who's going to take it a little further?
Oh, that's me. It's
That
me.
was you.
It's me. I got it. Okay. Okay, so when I say it's complicated, obviously there are a million factors that come into teaching and operating a successful classroom, and success can be defined in so many different ways. Your personal success is defined in different ways, and then the success of your students, and I think it's such a rare opportunity to be in a field like ours because our effectiveness is completely dependent on someone else's performance. And that is the only field in the world that's like that. So if your students do well on a test, then they say you're a good teacher, which to me, that's insane. So anyway, one of the things about kids coming first is that I will frequently be in a school where I'm walking down the hallway and see something and it just seems like everyone's kind of wrapped up in their own stuff, which that's probably a, not very unusual thing. But what I like to think of and remind myself of when I am in my classroom or when someone is not necessarily doing what they're supposed to be doing, and I'm a librarian, so it's like skipping class in my library or not doing their work or something like that. I always try to remind myself that I don't know what happened to them before they came to be around me. So when they're around me, I'm going to make that a pleasant experience, no matter what. Even if they're not doing the right thing, it's not personal. And it's very easy as a young teacher to think that when you're in this room full of kids and you've built these relationships and then something goes wrong, you think that it's like an attack on you, and it's not. Most kids are happy to be around you and they want to do what you are trying to get from them, and they're trying to enjoy themselves the same way that you are. So that's one of those things about like whatever their needs are, I'm going to find a way to meet that need. I'm going to try as hard as I can not to tell them no or to say, you're wrong, but to find some other way to tell them that they are important and what they feel and say matters, because you might be the only one who says that to them ever in their life. So it's kind of like it's a big responsibility, and I think it will go a long way in having that whatever success measurement you use. Anybody else want to add? I didn't have a partner. I was on my own. Okay. So, if anyone else wants to add, though.
What or who provides you the support needed to continue effective teaching?
My coworkers, my students motivate me, but my husband listens and supports.
Well, we all have to say 15 words. Count your
You're
words, Deanna.
quick.
You're up.
There we go. I thought we were on the
Number 2.
long part. Definitely you have your coworkers that you need to rely on. They are there with you. You live with them more than you almost live with your family. And they are there to help you and support you, totally understand where you're coming from. Then you go home to your family and they're your sounding board. And so it's kind of interesting. We're very education minded at our house because my husband's a school superintendent. So we try hard not to bring too much stuff home, but boy, it's nice to be able to rely on somebody who does understand. So
That was way more than 15 words.
Definitely colleagues, and a small group of like-minded colleagues will do a ton for helping you with innovation.
Longevity.
Colleagues in your building, supportive administration, and then also branching out your own professional learning network. So finding teachers around the country or the state or even the world who have the same education philosophy that you do, that you can talk to and bounce ideas off of.
I feel administration at schools, because however good your ideas are, if you don't have the resources and the support, you can't get things done.
And I would second the administration, and I'll expound later. But yeah, getting involved with your school administration, letting them know that you're willing to be a leader, as a first-year teacher, I think is important to know that, hey, get involved, get in clubs, but let your administrators know you're ready to work.
And I would agree too that your colleagues, from the administration to your co-teachers and your paras, your janitors, your secretaries, all the people you work with can be a great support. And your family are going to be there for you, because if you want to have longevity in this career, you do need someone you can talk to.
Okay, you're going to go first.
So I will expound. Speaking from personal experience, I was lucky to have a principal when I first started who valued teacher input, and whether he liked it or not, I asked a lot of questions, stuff that I observed or things that I thought might help or improve, and I was lucky that he was receptive to those ideas. Because of that, he got me I think my second year teaching, he put me on the building leadership team, and that led to being on an avid site team, going to conferences around the country. And the more professional development things you guys can do, I can point to 2 conferences that kind of changed my perception on teaching. An avid conference in San Diego. By the way, it helps to go to conferences in good locations. San Diego, Las Vegas, it could be worse. And then a professional development conference in Kansas City. And so just like I said, your administrators, if they know that you have ideas, you want to be part of making your school better, I think early on in your teaching career, it's good to do that. So now I'm on probably too many committees, but we've made important decisions, changing our school schedule. Some of you that were from Emporia High School, we're in trimesters now, and I was a big part of that whole process with our schedule committee. It's just, you can get pigeonholed and you're so focused early on, I've got to get my lesson plans done. But when you really know how the school works and you're involved with the processes and the solutions to some of the things that are going on in your building, it's very valuable. You feel like you have a bigger stake, and it builds trust, and it's just a good way to go through your teaching career in that building. So talk to your admin.
Okay. When I was first a teacher, I was nervous, and probably a lot of you will be as well. And the best thing I did was I found an authentic mentor. She was an art teacher as well. And she just took me under her wing and showed me all the tricks of the trade, and I didn't have to invent everything. She gave me really good perspective, helped me know what to worry about, what to not worry about, and just gave me a lot of personal and professional guidance. She helped me, guided me on, like when Matt was talking about professional development, helped me get involved professionally in my professional organization. So if you find someone in your building that you can connect with and they can give you advice, take it. I mean, that is a lifeline. And you can, because you don't have to be perfect your first year. You're gonna make mistakes, and they'll be there to help you work through them, and you can bounce ideas off of them and vent a little, and you need that. You need that in your, just to be able to manage it all, because it's a hard job, and you'll need someone to guide you. And then when you have challenges, like whether it be classroom control or something, find that teacher in your building that looks like they've got it together and ask them, what do you do? How do you do that? Just don't be afraid to ask questions, because we teachers are not just teachers of children. We want to teach other people too. And I know I'm always willing to help new teachers, and the senior teachers in your schools will want to help you too. So don't be afraid to ask. And the other thing is get involved in your professional organization, because they're going to be there for you and provide you network. across the state and from state to state, and opportunities. And also, if you have a problem, they'll be there for you with advice that you might need. You might not think you'd ever need, but sometimes you do.
Okay, if I do not upset the panel, I would like to skip to question 4, then come back to question 3. Okay. So if you're taking notes, skip a column. And what I like to do at the end of this question is open it up for some questions from the audience, then go back to the questions. So this question is, what piece of advice would you provide a first-year teacher on her or his first day?
Well, I'm going to repeat what I just said. Find those people who you can connect with and get advice from. Don't try to go it alone. Just get in there and take advice.
Well, I think you should try to show your students your personality, whether it's your humor. In my case, I tried to have students feel like they had some ownership of the room, so I would have animals they had to name the first day, just to kind of get that connection. So make them feel welcome and have fun.
First impressions count, and you only have one chance to make a first impression.
Show the kids that you care, and also don't be afraid to ask for help, or show the students that you make mistakes and you can learn from those mistakes.
Be nice.
I'm going to go take some of her 15 words. Definitely get to know them, let them know that you care. I'll tell you one really fast story, and I've written this in my whatever we had to write, the whole thing. It was kind of interesting. This one mother came to conferences, my very first conferences, and she said, "You had my son's heart the first day of school." And she says, "Because of what you said." And I go, "What did I say?" And she said, "You looked at him and said, 'Ooh, you have on Miami Dolphin shoes.'" And I go, "Oh yeah, I do remember that," because he had on Miami Dolphin colored tennis shoes. And I have 3 boys, and that's very prevalent. Every team that there is in the world, I kind of got familiar with. And that made such an impression, and you never know what you're going to say that will make a difference with those kids. And that positiveness and just things like that help you so much. So get to know your kids.
Mine is take the time to get to know your students. Same there. And I'm going to expand on that. Our first day at school, a lot of teachers are like, okay, I need you to know this and this and this. And it's important that you set up yourself and let students know your rules or your expectations of them, but you need to get to know them. And fun games. They also are nervous, especially kids that have moved in. Don't give assignments on the first day, if at all possible. I do have special needs kids, and the entire day we are just getting to know each other. What did you do over the summer? They want to share, and they need that time to share with their fellow peers. I mean, they also need that time to bring it down. And when you've come off of a long summer and you come in and say, okay, let's get to work, those kids are like, wait a minute. And I don't think you're going to get the best out of those students right off the bat.
Okay, I was talking about making a first impression, and that is really important because the kids look up to you, and they want to be in your class, they want to do well, they want to know what kind of a teacher they have, and it should be something exemplary. Dress nicely so that you show your professionalism, and have your class ready. Have an environment set up that is conducive to learning. If it's, mine is a science classroom, so I have a lot of bones and skeletons and pet animals and interesting creatures soaking in formalin that they look at. So it's a class that they want to be in, so it's interesting. Then have lesson plans ready for day one. Okay, just because it's the first day doesn't mean you're going to waste any time. You're going to give them activities that keep them filled up, but fun things at the same time. They don't know each other yet because it's a new class. So games of getting to know each other and then getting to know the teacher, learn their names, and make an impression that you are in charge from day one. Have that seating chart ready. Don't say you can sit anywhere today and then give them a seating chart another day, because that very first day you're in charge. So you give them a place where they got to sit, what they got to do, what you expect of them. So I would say go slow to go fast. You can actually spend a whole week getting to know them, having light assignments, playing, and making sure they understand class rules and routines. That is very important. If they know this is what is done, as soon as they come in, they have an assignment waiting at the table that they pick up and start working on, they get into that routine of doing that. They won't be waiting for you and talking and chatting and being all over the class. They know there's something there ready when they walk in. So the first week, it could be a game. It could be something. And even homework. I tell them that homework is to sign their safety contract and bring it back. Okay, that's a simple assignment, but it's homework on the very first day. And it works because you're getting them into that routine of what you need them to do, and they will follow that, and you'll have so much better class time. The kids, I don't even have to be there at the door or at the computer. They just walk in, they pick it up, they start working, and the class goes from there.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to open it up to the audience. Does anyone have a question on anything that we've talked about so far, or you really have a burning question on the first day of your classroom? And we have experts up here. I guess we're all ready for the first day?
I'm going to ask some
Okay.
things, and maybe not about just the first day, but you're the art teacher, and you talked about having somebody with you. And I'm coming from an elementary background, but secondary people probably feel this way too, I think, especially those who are in K-12 certifications. For us as elementary teachers, we usually have a group around us that has a like grade level or something we're doing. But I know you're there to be a resource to everyone, so tell us how you can get more involved with teachers when you maybe don't have someone in your school because it's a smaller school or there aren't as many art teachers there, and maybe what you do with us as elementary teachers.
Well, are you talking about a really small town as well?
Or
Okay.
a bigger town with only one art teacher in an elementary
Right.
school. Something like
Well, and when I started, I was the only elementary teacher in 4 schools. I went to 4 schools myself. And so my mentor that I bonded with was another elementary teacher in another school. But I also got a lot of advice from teachers that weren't art teachers. Like one of the more seasoned teachers her class always looked like they were in order. She didn't seem to have a lot of discipline issues. So I just walked over. I said, yeah, I complimented her. Hey, you really seem to have it together. What do you do? How do you do that? And she was so happy to share with me, and as most teachers are happy to share. So it doesn't have to be a like subject person. So if you're the only business teacher, it doesn't have to be another business teacher. It could be a science teacher. But we all are teachers. So I think you can get good advice and help from a lot of different people, and you can get just that morale boost just because the best thing about being a teacher is we are in general generous, kind, and giving people, or we wouldn't be teachers at all. And so you really will find that you'll be working with some of the best people you could ever hope to work with. So you kind of have that instant great group of coworkers right off the bat.
Yeah. Any other questions? Oh, good.
I have a question for Deanna. Hey, in Manhattan, with close proximity to Fort Riley, you have a lot of transient students who come in and out throughout the whole school year. So how do you establish and maintain that culture of welcomeness and getting to know the kids even as they're coming in and out throughout the whole school year?
Well, Amanda, it's good to see you. Being in a military situation, it really is rough because there's kids in and out a lot. We don't have near the effect as what Junction City does, but you just do what you have to do. You get to know kids. We team kids up with partners when they first come into our school and have somebody shadow them all day long and try to find kids, like to take them to the lunch, show them where the bathroom is, how do you dump your lunch tray, and all those exciting things. And you as a teacher, you know, I talk to them individually and try to get them make their transition. They know I work so hard to say, if you can't get your locker open, come here and I will be so glad to help you with that, because that's pretty scary. I don't know if you ever remember what lockers were like. Well, I'd be wealthy if I could charge for that, because I have a whole lot of lockers I've undone. And it's those little things that we take for granted that you think, it's okay. It's scary. And I'm in 7th grade and they're just frightened to death. And then you imagine moving into a new situation when people are sizing you up that first day. So I think it's our responsibility to try to find a mentor for these kids and to help them. And then don't even go with grading. It gets to be a headache, but you know, we've got to make them feel, you know, welcome. So did that answer okay?
Thank you.
All right.
While we're waiting, quick show of hands if you are elementary. Secondary? Yeah.
How do you know when you're going for your job interviews which school is right for you? Because I know a lot of us, well, at least myself, I don't know walking in, I've never been in your school before. How do I know that that's where I want to be at?
I got this.
So I think a lot of people are intimidated in that first interview, and I remember feeling that way and, you know, wondering if I was saying the right things and everything. And I started out as a math teacher, and I did interview at some places and got letters that said, "We are not optimistic for your opportunities teaching in our district." Actually, the district I teach in now sent me that letter. Anyway, look at me now. Anyway, what I found is that, you know, I had a couple choices and I picked the one that was right for me. But now as a librarian, like if you want a job that's in some kind of specialty, you're going to take the job that's offered to you, because you can always teach someplace for a year. And if it doesn't end up being the perfect, right, great location from the get-go, you still take that job and you do it and you learn a ton. And then you are now a seasoned teacher. So that makes you more marketable automatically. So I don't think anybody should feel any kind of like anxiety, or I don't think you should feel scared, like, am I picking the right one? You know, because with teachers, like, there's lots of movement. People know at the end of the school year, you know, if they're gonna be moving or what, you know, schools are gonna be hiring. And then once you're in with a district and you want to change, that's an easy thing to do too. You know, I work in a large district, so there's lots of openings every year. But even if you're in a smaller place, you know, people come and people go and things change, or, you know, they have more 3rd graders than 2nd graders and somebody's got to move or whatever it is. But as far as kind of those questions that you have, like, get your foot in the door, and then you're going to have a lot of options after the fact.
Research your school. Get online and look and see what they're all about. And it may not be the perfect situation like you're saying, but put your best foot forward and research them so that you can ask good questions when you go for that interview. And it often helps.
Okay, any other questions at this time? Anything from secondary? Okay. All right, let's go back to the question, number 3. What is one of the biggest strengths in education today?
Coming from special ed, I think it's the acceptance of special ed versus when I first started.
I look at the access to information. It's there. If you want it, you can look anything up, unlike when I first started teaching. So it's changed a whole lot.
I would say one of the biggest strengths in education today is a paradigm shift from knowledge and information to process and thinking. So I guess innovation, I could have just said that, innovation.
I would say ease of connectedness, and I'll expand on that later.
Yeah, technology at your fingertips.
I think individual plans of study, thinking back to high school, I had no idea it was out there. Even as a health field teacher now, I had no idea in college. I was like, hey, I'm gonna get a pre-med degree and I don't really know what the heck's out there. Embrace individual plans of study. I can't tell you how many kids now leave school that go to a 2-year school, 4-year school, whatever, trade school, because they find something that fits their personality and their skill set so much better.
Well, teaching art in Western Kansas, one strength of education today is my easier access to art resources that was not there when I started teaching. So that's been a big improvement, that I can bring art experiences to my students a lot easier than I could 29 years ago.
In my 4th grade class, we connect with classes from all over the country and the world. I think that's one of the biggest positives that I can bring to my students, is show them that there are other people in the world outside of just central Kansas who look and sound like them and who have the same hopes and dreams, but who may live in a different part of the world. And so we do a lot of Skype projects, a lot of global collaboration projects. And because of technology, our students can really access anywhere in the world that they want and anyone that they want. So we've connected with people from NASA when we're doing a unit on space. We've talked with a penguin scientist in Antarctica, and she was able to take her camera and go right up to the baby penguin chicks and talk about the research that she does. So that really just opens up the world to our students. They learn about other cultures. And I feel like if we're expecting our students to be able to change the world someday, then we need to show them the world and show them people and places and issues that are out there. One of the projects that we do, and we actually just did this one a couple weeks ago, we do a Skype Around the World Day, where my students stay at school from 8 a.m. until midnight, and yes, they are 4th grade. So 8 a.m. until midnight, and we spend the whole day just connecting with other teachers and classrooms all around the world. And they take notes on their passports. We make little 4th grade passports, and they take notes on each country's culture and geography, economy, and we share things about Kansas that we had researched. And that's just such a powerful experience for them to know, to be able to experience and virtually visit all these other places around the world. So just utilizing that technology and opening the world up for your students is really powerful.
All right, thank you. That ends round 2. Round 3, they all have the exact same question, but there's no length to their answer. So each person will have an opportunity to expand on it. This year's theme for Kansas Master Teacher is the changing face of teaching. So the question is, what has been the greatest change in education during your career?
The greatest change I have seen is the amount of technology that my students now have available. They have an iPad available. They get in the morning and check it in the afternoon. And of course, cell phones. But no longer encyclopedias, and so the amount of technology, and like Todd was saying, that we can talk around the world and things, that has been the biggest change since I started teaching.
Well, definitely technology is with me. There's too many young people in this room that, does anybody know what an ERIC search is? Do you remember that? That's how I used to do research papers. You'd have to go to the library and order up an article and so on to do your research paper. And now you can sit at home and do that. So that's fantastic. And then also, it's just great with kids. It truly is. I have great concerns with technology also with kids, and it's not being used well some places. So it's great, and it's awful at some points. So it's a huge change.
Thanks. So I kind of have a lot to say about this. I actually think that the biggest change is the world. Like the world has changed in drastic and what was probably predictable ways, but everyone acts like it was unpredictable. So it used to be that, kids were arranged in classes and they were by grade, and, which really just meant age and subject, and it's kind of a dumb way to do it. So that whole system started, hundreds of years ago, like in the 1600s. So we adopted it here, and now we kind of are looking at it like, well, why do we do it that way? Because it's not really working for us. And the reason why I say that is that, it used to be that you went to school and you learned to do something that you would then, do the same thing over and over again, or you were going to start with a low-level position and work your way up a ladder of some kind. And maybe you were in solving kinds of problems like better toasters, or even safety things like let's make seat belts that keep people safer in their cars, and then airbags, and then all these things. Like we're solving problems in the world that help people. And now we're to the point where we need people who can solve the kinds of problems that will keep the end of humanity from coming. So like the problems seem more dire because it's not just about solving problems for convenience, it's about creating learners who can solve problems that will save our species. And so to say that we're gonna keep teaching the way we have, and the fact that math homework in high school looks exactly the same as it did 100 years ago, like that should be embarrassing to us. And it is to me as a former math teacher and as an educator, that we are still trying to do things the same way, and that the system is so slow to change, even when there's lots of people within the system who want to change. And that's why I feel like what you guys are doing right now is so important as we get younger and newer educators coming into our field, is to not just do it the way that you went through the system. We all know that people think, oh, you can be a teacher because you went to school, but they don't say that about surgeons. Like, oh, you had surgery, you can be a surgeon. That would be a stupid sentiment, but people say it to us all the time as educators, like I was in school one day so I could teach, or everyone's favorite phrase, those who can't do teach. Yeah, that's a dumb thing to say. So I think that there's so much more to teaching that we need to think about than just, am I getting kids to my standards? Because a lot of you are gonna find that the standards that you have to teach are ancient, to be polite. So I think that always having that little edge, and I clearly have a severe case of stick it to the maniosis, so like I kind of skew on the far side of that, but I think that it would be great if we had people coming through our teacher education programs who are not just like able to think of things in terms of change, but like amps, like ready to start a revolution or join a revolution and change the way that we've done things. Because if we continue to keep teaching the way that we always have, then there's not going to be anyone anywhere to be quite bold. So I would say that's what I have to say.
So ditto on what everything Abby said, but I'll add a couple of small things.
Yes, please.
I'd say personalized professional development is one change. I've been teaching for very long. This is my 7th year teaching, but kind of the old version of professional development, is more sit and get. Now we're starting to see, especially in a lot of innovative districts, more personalized professional development. So getting input from teachers about what do we need to work on, what would we like to know more about. So doing things like playing in a makerspace and doing robotics and coding and things like that. Skyping in with an author and discussing different educational trends. So just things that are more personal. I also feel like this is sort of a cutting edge time for education in Kansas with the Kansas redesign. So I'm not sure how many people are familiar with that. It's basically a 7-year plan or a 10-year plan, I think, where each school district in Kansas is supposed to kind of innovate or change in some way. So not doing things like we did 100 years ago, but kind of thinking more student-centered. So it could be something small, like implementing a program. It could be something large, as in, we're not going to have classes based on grade or age. We're not going to have our day set up by, here's our math time, here's our reading time, here's our science time and social studies time, but more project-based learning, things like that. And so I think now is a great time for Kansas educators to start thinking out of the box.
I think the change is mainly from teacher-centered, and it's moved over to being student-centered. It's more importance to the students nowadays, right? So the teacher is just a facilitator. They don't do everything that they used to do before. It's more put on to the students. I used to do it all the time. I used to, if there was a lab ready, I had to put everything out on the table for them, think up of what things they would need and make it ready, keep it on the table, cut out those squares of paper, measure everything, have it ready for them to work with. But that's not the way we do it anymore. It's not what they learn, it's how they learn. Yes. So you need to make them do the thinking. What will I need for this lab? What do I need to put together? I'm thinking more high school. Maybe for little kids, you'll have to do it yourself. But high school kids need to use all that they've learned all these years and measure things out for themselves, use tools for themselves, think out for themselves, and work. So actually the teacher, the work of the teacher is not there in the classroom. The preparation is what the teacher does. And then in the class, the teacher does less and less, and the students do more and more. So that's what I think is more important, is you get them to know how to learn. Get them to, they have the knowledge, it's there on the internet. They can read a lot of things. You don't have to tell them what's there. But if you can tell them how to get there, how to work, how to be polite, how to work with colleagues, to be team players, and then how to problem solve, that'll be the greatest thing, I think, is very nice nowadays.
Some of them have kind of hit on this, but yeah, when I can remember my first year teaching, it was, are you going to get all the objectives in? Content, content, content. And, family and, family structures and, our district actually just this year has had a big push in implementing curriculum or programs for social and emotional. I guess I was kind of sheltered. I was lucky to have 2 great parents. They're both teachers, and I was not prepared for all the needs my students had, and I'm still adjusting. Kids deal with a lot, mental and physical health, attention spans because of technology, and kids don't know how to write. I'm getting answers like IDK. I was like, oh, you're kidding me. And so I think what education is starting to do, and I think it's going to make a huge change, is, we talked about individual plans of study, but involved with that is looking at the emotional and social aspects of that too. Because it's not about content, it's about getting them prepared for what's going to be best for them after high school. And some of the skills they come out of our schools with now, it's not as much about content. It's life skills, it's those critical thinking skills that was mentioned earlier, and emotional skills. And it's neat that my school this year has started to implement some things to help them with that, and something I got a big learning curve, but I think going forward, the social and emotional aspect of kids recognizing what they need and how to help them develop some of those things will be great.
I think they've covered almost everything. Well, going back to the question, what has changed the most over my career? This is my 29th year of teaching, and technology has made a huge difference in being able, in the way I teach art, because I do have access to so much that I didn't. At first I had to put a lot of effort to go get a poster or get a slide, and now I can just pull it right up on the internet. So access to resources has changed the way I teach. And I think too, we always have to remember that the content is important, but we really are helping develop the adults of tomorrow. And I've been teaching long enough that some of my former students are now my coworkers, and that's kind of a funny feeling. Actually, one of my former students is now one of my supervisors, so be nice to them because they might be your boss someday. So, but they really do become part of your community, and they might be the nurse that's taking care of you. They might be the person I had one that was rotating the tires on my car, and I thought, I hope he is attention to detail so he gets those bolts on nice and tight. But they do become part of our community, and so it's important that we remember that we're developing these future adults, and it's not just about the math problem in front of them. One other big thing that has changed over my career is the notion of safety, because when I first started, probably, be careful when you're walking around with those scissors, and now I have to consider where am I going to put my students if something happens in my school. And that's not something I had to think about when I started teaching. So, and I think it's something that you will all be involved in the conversation regarding, and I think we should be involved in the conversation. I think the people making the decisions are not involving teachers enough, and I think they do need to be talking to us about school safety and what will work best in our schools.
I'm going to open it up one more time. You have a lot of notes in front of you. No burning questions.
So I'm like a really big STEM nerd, and it's my whole life. Do you guys notice an increase in STEM in schools from when you guys started teaching? And what it looks like?
Yes. I can tell you, and we have a lot of pathway classes now. Just in our science department, we've had an increase of, gosh, I think over the last 2 years, an increase of 50% of student enrollment. And like I said earlier, this whole idea of individual plans of study, kids know what they want to do. We have so many classes at our school that are offered now. They can get their CNA degree or license in health science 1 and 2 and 3 and college biology, and they can now go into ag pathways, and those classes are really kind of, well, it's increased so much, it's affected our teachers. We're actually had to add another teacher, which is a good thing for us, but yeah, it's huge in our school, so it's been neat to see the last 3 years or so.
Yeah, seen an increase as well. So last year I helped to change one of our computer labs in our building to a makerspace. So we've been slowly building it up with everything from a green screen to Legos to cardboard, just a whole bunch of different things. I personally like to think of it as STEAM and not STEM, so adding the arts in, because I think that is important too.
Last call.
You said you had to add another teacher at your school. Do your students have a say in the extracurricular activities or the extra classes that are added on to
Yeah, I didn't get to add the teacher, to clarify. Enrollment kind of drives that. We've had so many more kids get into our health science classes and my biomed class, and we just saw the numbers that were needed. The issue with that is it could fluctuate, and so you do have to, as a teacher, and as you guys are going into your new careers, the more classes you can teach, the better off you're going to be, because you're kind of in limbo from year to year if you're switching back and forth. But yeah, students ultimately do drive what classes we offer. If your schools do the right thing, you can have surveys and things like that, but we've seen just by the classes that are offered what the kids want. And we have classes that are added year to year, whether it's in business or other departments, because the kids tell us, hey, that's what I want to take.
I'll add something.
I was just going to add kind of a behind the scenes thing about the way FTE works, and FTE is what they consider, a full-time teacher or whatever. So they'll take your entire enrollment and divide by the number of faculty members, and they'll say, well, that's the FTE that we need so that we have a good ratio. So like at my school, they'll say the ratio is, 23-1, okay, meaning classes of 23. But that's not real, because every English class has 32 kids in it, every single one. And so the reason why is because then there's obviously classes that are much lower than that, or like as a librarian, I am a full-time position where I don't actually have any students assigned to me. So that's just something to know. For example, our school this year, they're saying will be down 1.7, which means that they did not renew a teacher who was leaving anyway. So they're not filling an English teacher. So all of the classes that currently are taught by that person will be absorbed into teachers who already have 32 kids in their classes. And then they have to cut another 0.7 positions. So I think there's like a social studies teacher who's going from full-time to 0.8, meaning they teach 4 instead of 5 classes. And then I think there's a chemistry teacher who's leaving. And they're somehow absorbing part of the kids there. So there's a lot of things behind the scenes that you wouldn't know as a beginning teacher that could affect like where you're teaching or what. And it is good advice to say like the more things you can teach, the better. But also to know that kind of after you've proven yourself and made yourself important with extra duties and things like that, then that is also a feather in your cap, so it helps.
You can be louder.
No, I don't want to be louder. I'm going to be teaching kindergarten, and I guess I'm kind of worried about the beginning, different activities that I can do with them, the beginning of the school year, to get them to interact with their peers, to make them more social with me, because I know they're leaving mom and dad and that kind of thing. So, is there any insight there?
I have a kindergartner right now.
I have a kindergartner, she's 5. Actually, she turns 6 tomorrow. And she is in a class of like 23, and it's pretty traditional, more traditional than I would like. There's not like toys in her classroom at all. She takes timed math tests, which I think is gross. Yeah. And so I would say if you can encourage play and make believe, like that is not what they're getting. That's not what my daughter's getting at school, but like I can buy her every toy in the world and she doesn't play with it. All she does at home is make believe and pretend play. And I kind of think that, now that I have a child who's that young and I see, her kind of evolution of her brain and how she thinks and what she enjoys to do, and then I see my high schoolers, like we really have beaten the wonder out of them with the school system. Like they used to be like that, and then we said, sit here, do this, do it the way I say, don't do it the way I don't say, stand in line this way, keep a bubble in your mouth, sit with your hands in your lap, like whatever, all those things. That made that wonder and that play and that creativity and just pretend, it helped it go away. I think, part of it is the brain growing up and that kind of stuff, but it's definitely been since she went to school, and she'll tell you that she's bored. She would rather throw up than do her morning work because it's boring.
Can I bounce off that real quick?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm in kindergarten now, and we were talking about
like making the kids feel comfortable. I have a kid who literally still cries every morning when he gets dropped off. Like, how do I deal with that? Or how do I like make him feel okay that he is going to be in the classroom? Still cries.
Do you think the make-believe and the playing and more socializing would help that versus sitting down doing his morning work, that kind of thing?
I do feel that if it was more play and more like what happens at home, that would take some of the edge off. I would also think, though, that after 100+ days of school, there might be something else going on there than just, I want my mommy. So there's probably, you know, things that will happen in that child's school life that are gonna steer them in certain directions. But like as far as like making the kids feel welcome and, you know, all of that stuff, like they love to play. And, you know, recess is every kid's favorite time starting in kindergarten because you get to play and you don't have to do that. So I think like any kind of social games like that, I mean, I get so concerned about Worksheet Central and like the volume of papers that are coming home in that folder, you know, are a lot. It seems like a lot. And I say, did you play? And you know, she's like, no, we did our work. But then, you know, when she was in preschool last year, well, how was school? What did you learn? Psh, preschool's not for learning. School's not for learning. It's for playing. You know, like that shift that happened between preschool and kindergarten is concerning, I think.
I'm also in kindergarten. And, you know, it's actually kind of bizarre to see how much, and this kind of goes into a question I have, how much testing is needed at a kindergarten level for these students to be able to say blank plus 6 equals 10 at 5 and 6 years old. Kind of blows my mind. I'm sure you guys have seen it also. Yeah. So my question is, I'm going to be doing SPED. How do you kind of balance like all that testing, but also at the same time do your job? Like test the kids when they need tested.
My biggest deal is, and I do not like state testing at all, okay, because my IEP drives what I do. Those parents know exactly where they are. I know exactly where they are, and I don't think I need another test to show they can't do it. My philosophy in my room, and my kids know it, we're going to do the best we can, and we're going to have a party afterwards. And that's what we do. I mean, you know, I've had kids who I've had a mother call, and she was up all night, she's panicked, she's worried, and I'm like, okay. And so when she would come in, we didn't test that day. And finally, I just said, you know, we all have to do things we don't want to do, but we're just going to try the best we can. And I said, and let's just make it through it. You know, I can help to a point, but your hands are tied on certain tests and things. But when it comes to special needs kids, it's hard to sit there and the state says, okay, you're an 8th grader, you're only reading at 3rd grade, but you're going to take an 8th grade test. And when I have parents and they get all those papers, and I said, you already know this. This paper doesn't mean anything. We're worried about the IEP, what they're doing, and from if they gained so many points by me, that's awesome. If they didn't and we stayed the same, we're gonna go, okay, what do we need to keep pushing? But I'm pushing them from where they are and up, not from what the state says.
I have something to add. So this is all part of my Librarians Take Over the World plan. So when you first started your question, you said how much testing is appropriate for kindergarten. The answer is none. I mean, the answer for most is none. Tests are a terrible measure of what people can do. They might be an okay measure of what people know at that moment, but everyone knows the statistics. If you take that same test 3 months later, you don't know it anymore because it's not applicable. And so I think that what you can do is you can all be noisy. Very, very noisy. And when we say our hands are tied, they're only tied if we keep our mouths shut. So I think if we get noisy about the way we have been standardizing our effectiveness, and it's not us standardizing, it's legislators standardized our effectiveness, starting with No Child Left Behind, really. I mean, there's always been, standards-based learning and things like that. But what I'm saying is, we need a push from educators saying, this is a wasted tool. It's expensive. It doesn't tell us what we want. It's not an accurate measure of what my students know or can do. It's just a measure of that test on that day. And people are starting to say the same things about the ACT and the SAT. Colleges will continue to use them for a little while, but I don't see that happening forever and ever and ever either. So I think the professionals getting vocal, teachers, we're nice. We go out of our way to help each other. There's 1 million people in my building that I could go to that would be a lot of work for them to help me with something, and they will all say yes. Teachers by nature are generous, helping, kind, supportive people. We don't eat our young. We don't, we don't do mean things in general. I mean, I'm sure there's outliers, but we also, though, follow the rules and keep our mouths shut. And when our budgets are cut, we do more instead of less, which is what should happen when your budget gets cut, because otherwise then the budget cutters are correct in cutting your budget. And so we have to be more vocal and noisy, and it's starting to happen in some states, like with West Virginia and Oklahoma. We can't do that here in Kansas, but I think that by getting vocal and involved in larger organizations, we can have a hand in changing the way students are measured.
Right, you changed me already. Oh, you're welcome.
Why don't you pass the mic down to Connie, and we'll go to round 4 very quickly.
Ready,
And so we'll just
speed
kind of
round.
pass it down. When the mic comes down here, I'll start question number 2 with you, and we'll just go
Back and
with,
forth.
of course,
What's round
fast
one?
answers. If you are taking notes, it's the back side of the sheet that I gave you.
Round 4.
Your age when you first knew you wanted to be a teacher.
32.
21.
I feel like it would be inappropriate to say 39 because I'm 39, so I'll go with 17.
I started off as a journalist, so I'm going to say 26.
I'd say 5 or 6 because my mom was a teacher. I followed her. I did what she did. I thought something was wonderful about teaching, but it turned out wonderful anyway.
Both my parents are teachers. That's why I initially did not want to be a teacher. Not that I love my parents and they're awesome, but to be honest, probably not until I student taught 23.
Probably when I was about 20.
Okay, name your most recent pedagogical read.
Children and their art.
I'm so bad with book titles. I'm getting my ESL certification right now, endorsement, and there was a book about families migrating to American our education system. It was just a all picture book. Google it. I'm sure it's an easy description.
I think I read Discipline in the Secondary Classroom by Randall Sprick. It has a lot of good examples. You can't follow everything. There's good and silly ones in there, but take the best from there.
Teach Like a Pirate by Dave Burgess. Another good one is Dish That Textbook by Matt Miller.
I love both of those, and I will add Alone Together by Sherry Turkle, which is about students and their devices and being alone but together.
Anything on Temple Grandin. I've read several books on her that's great on autism. She's a great example of it, and it's a good read.
The 5 languages of appreciation in the workplace.
All right. Now, the pedagogical read that you have had for years, one that is still near your desk.
Harry Wong, How to Be an Effective Teacher the First Day of School.
A Framework for Understanding Poverty by Ruby Payne.
Mine is Empower by Spencer and Giuliani.
Same one that Connie said, The First Days of School. My first year teaching, I borrowed it from my teaching partner, and I realized recently that I still have it, so I guess I technically stole it, but you know.
Yeah, I have Harry Wong's first day of school with me too. It's not that it's needed only on that first year of teaching. Every year is like a new beginning. So every year I go back to look into how I should be that first day, remind myself what to check off on that checklist. And I've used that book to induct new teachers during the new teacher orientation many times. That's my favorite for now.
I'm so happy. Mine was already mentioned because I couldn't remember the name. Ruby Payne is very powerful. When we did the training 4 or 5 years ago, it's an amazing read.
Well, and I mentioned children and their art, and that's the same one I'll say now because I use that in my classroom, and I also use it when I teach a course for the university.
Teaching, is it an art or is it a science?
It's an art.
I'm a science teacher, but I would say it's an art.
Sure, I'm a science teacher too, and I say, like you did, it's an art because science is something that you can do over and over again, and you have to find the same results, right? Science, you have to be able to explain yourself over, and the results should be the same. But it doesn't happen. With teaching, every year it's a different set. Every class, actually, you give the same lesson plan, and it's a different reaction. One class does well and uses all that time, and the other class gets it done, and you have 10 minutes extra on your hands, and you don't know what to do. So it is, it's an art. It's not science. It's an art.
I would say more of an art, although I think it is sort of a blend of both. I think each teacher kind of has to find their sweet spot between the art and the balance. But for me, more of an art.
Definitely art, because I think that there's so many things that happen during your day. There's like 3 million things that happen during your day, and any one of them, you have to have kind of a, like an extra sense to understand exactly what that kid might be doing at that time, or what that administrator is saying to you, or there's just a lot of hidden things that you have to be able to perceive, and it's easy. It's just, it's definitely not scientific.
It's an art because of all the challenges that you find, and it's something different every hour. Like somebody says, one group is going to do one thing, and then it changes from year to year.
It's an art.
Done. Unanimous. Excellent.
Apparently, it's art.
It's art. Yes.
With science influence. Name the one element that you wish you had more.
Oh.
Time. I would like more time with my students. We have so many things that we have to get done that I would love more time.
I would like to say money, but it's not going to happen. So time is what I would really like more of.
Yes. Can I say yes? Like all time, money, energy, innovation. I don't know. Yeah, we need more of everything.
Yeah, I would like to have more of all of it, probably time. Just trying to fit everything in and have more time to go deep in certain areas with my students.
Yeah, on that list, I marked time as being most important because I have so much. It's not just the class time. I have enough time with my class, I think. I'm ready to let them go end of the day. But it's more time for myself to plan, to do things I want to do. And sometimes I'm sitting in an in-service day just wasting time listening to something that they said over and over and over again. I don't know. I want more time.
I would say energy. I mentioned earlier how important it is to get involved, but you know, right now I coach tennis, and all last week I got home around 10 o'clock p.m. Because all the meets we've had, and then I have college work, and I should probably lesson plan for the next day. And well, I plan ahead. Don't worry. No, I really do. But yeah, it is an energy drain, and yeah, energy.
I think teaching in a rural area, sometimes the one resource is proximity. We're so far away from everything, and that has its benefit, but it also comes with its challenge because our kids are gone a long time when they leave for a game, or if I wanted to take them to a museum, you know, it's so far away, so maybe proximity.
3 adjectives to describe your teaching.
I would say high expectations, but flexible, and most of all, creative.
Creativity, or creative, humor, and hands-on.
I would say diligent, innovative, and practical.
I would say global, collaborative, and innovative.
I would say boat rocking, frenetic, and innovative.
I have down observant, caring, and high expectations.
Loving, humorous, and expectations.
Last question. 2 talents or skills you want your students to have when they leave your classroom.
Independence and a sense of humor.
Strong work ethic and caring attitude.
Question authority and think for yourself.
Say developing a sense of empathy with others and fostering academic risk takers. So wanting them to not be afraid to take a risk and fail and learn from that mistake.
Critical thinking and problem-solving skills.
Critical thinking and collaborative.
I want them to be more aware of all the influences of art around them and in their world, and I want them to have an increased confidence in their ability to do things themselves.
And with that, we're about 30 seconds away from filling the 75 minutes, and I think our panel did a wonderful job. I conclude the seminar. So thank you for being here.